So as Matt said, was a swimmer, was a board member, which means that no matter how badly this goes right here, this will be my most enjoyable trip to Colorado Springs. All right, your assistant coaches are smarter than you. Matt named this one. I'm just going to start this off acknowledging that. So it's not my fault. He's the one accusing all of you guys of being dumb. All right. A little bit about me. I grew up swimming for Tualatin Hills Swim Club in Portland, Oregon. Swam there from the age of 5 until the age of 18, and then went to USC. Swam there for 4 years. I was a member of Trojan Swim Club. Had an amazing time. This past weekend, went back to NCAA's for the first time since my senior year. Had just such a surprising time. I didn't know that swim meets could be as much fun as they are when you're not the one suffering. After I graduated, swam for a little bit professionally, and then made my way into advertising. I worked for an agency on the account service side for a couple years before joining NASCAR. I've been with NASCAR for 5 years as of this past week. 4 years working on entertainment projects. So that's everything from web series about a driver's life to feature film like Talladega Nights. That's the sort of stuff that we work on in Los Angeles. Had a great time there. Learned a lot about sports business, and really content and the importance of content in really establishing what your brand is. And then, as Matt said, there's one racetrack that's owned by NASCAR, that's Iowa Speedway. The track was purchased by the league about 1.5 years ago. And this past summer, I made the move out to the racetrack to really focus on all the fan-facing components of a racetrack. So that's marketing, that's ticketing, that's communications, it's all that stuff. Communications is really the part that I'll be able to share with you guys today, and what we do as a racetrack and how it relates to NASCAR in general. Let's see. Here's just some examples of my social media. Please feel free to follow me on all platforms. I'm especially good on Snapchat, so if you guys want to jump on Snapchat, like that's really where I shine. All right, so millennials among us. I actually see that there's a lot of millennials in the audience, so I'm speaking about you, and please don't let me down on this one. Why millennials? Well, generally, this is a quarter of the population of the United States. These are people who were born roughly between 1980 and 2000. That makes me a millennial, but just barely. I was born in 1982. Oftentimes, I think that I am, in fact, a Gen Xer, but as you'll see, that's not actually the case. A few things about millennials. They're less likely to be married at the same age as their parents. They're about half as likely to be married. They're more likely to receive higher education, so they're a very educated group of people. And kind of back to the less likely to be married, I think it plays into them being more cautious and thoughtful about the decisions that they make. While some of you may debate that one, it is a tenet of the generation. They're more likely to be bilingual. Speaks to kind of the flattening of the whole world and this connection that we have beyond our borders. And they're far more ethnically diverse, well above the national average for the African American, Asian, and Hispanic population of this demographic. So, this is me. The boomers are called the me generation. Oftentimes, millennials are called the me generation. I went to Pew Research and I took a survey that rates how much of a millennial you are. I scored a 99. Not sure that I'm completely comfortable with it, but there it is, science. Really, when you get into the different components that this survey looked at, it's content consumption, so the amount of television that you watch, it's the phone use, how much time are you speaking on it versus texting on it, and I'll tell you that millennials much prefer texting. Importance of career and what your objectives are. How the career falls within your priorities is an important one that defines millennials. Social acceptance, being comfortable with some things that maybe previous generations were not comfortable with. The use of social media, which is what we're really talking about here, and then tattoos and piercings, which I'll leave alone for now. So according to Forbes, one of the most important things that defines millennials is how they seek authenticity. Millennials care about everything it is they touch. They are less likely to be convinced by a TV spot. They're far more likely to be compelled to do something by one of their friends tweeting about it. They've learned to develop their own personal brand from a young age. Really, they started doing that the first time they went on Facebook and posted. They started to put it out to the world that this is who I am, which is unique. It's not something that previous generations had an opportunity to do, to develop a brand. So when they got into marketing functions and things like that, really they had to be educated on how to do it, whereas millennials have lived their way through it. Adweek talks about the use of social media, the use of devices. How many times do you guys think that the average millennial checks their phone per day? You guys are going aggressive. It's 50 times a day they'll check their phone. Yeah. Brent Smith, who's here from TIER, can attest. I am one of those people that pulls that number up. I think that I'm probably in the 250 range on number of times that I check. Who knows what could have happened in the few seconds since it went back in my pocket. And really, another thing is that millennials are early adopters. They're going to be the first ones to try different things. They're going to have an understanding of it really before it hits the mainstream. And so really, as we talk about why this matters to you and to listening to your millennial coaches, your assistant coaches, it's this part of what defines a millennial. So that brings me to natives versus immigrants. On the left side, we have a native. This is Joey Logano. He just won the Daytona 500. Joey is all of 23 years old. On the right, we have a future Hall of Famer of two sports, Coach Gibbs. Proud football coach from Washington and a very impressive NASCAR team owner. An amazing individual. They're both holding the same device. They're using it in two very different ways. Joey's taking a selfie in front of the most prestigious trophy in racing, and Coach Gibbs is covering one of his ears and talking on it. This is really to what's different between generations. Joey uses something, the exact same piece of equipment, in a more progressive way. When you talk about why this is, Joey grew up with the internet. From his earliest days, he had that connection to the rest of the world. He's native to the digital world. Coach Gibbs does a great job, but he's always catching up. He's not going to be the one who's leading. I actually hope that Coach Gibbs never takes a selfie. That would really be heartbreaking for me. But that is, it's just a natural thing that a millennial does, because this device has always been in their hand. They've always had that opportunity to sit at a computer and type away. communicate with anyone around the world and recognize that the world so here we are today, the current state of affairs. And I totally stole a graphic I used last year. We live in a digital world. That's not going to change. You look at kids today, and they're growing up trying to swipe on magazines and on TVs because they're so used to using iPads. You've probably seen some of those YouTube videos, which make us smirk. But the reality is, even though I'm 99% millennial, I'm quickly being outdated. It's so hard to say. So the smartest thing for you to do is cozy up to your millennial coaches because they're going to be the ones who help you market your brand, and they're also the ones who are going to give you that closest connection to your swimmers. They speak their language in a way that you most likely do not, but that's an okay thing. So let's break down the walls. In my opinion, the reason why Pete Carroll is a better football coach for the Seahawks than he was for the New England Patriots is not that he became a better coach, it's that he has different athletes. When he coached in New England, he was coaching a bunch of Gen Xers. Now in Seattle, he's coaching a bunch of millennials. And his style, his behaviors, his interests, all that are suitable to a millennial athlete, whereas they just did not jive with the athletes that he had in New England. So and Pete obviously is not a millennial. There is an opportunity for those who are immigrants to make that transition and to speak to a younger demo. But it's something that you really have to work at, and you can let your assistant coaches drag you along there. Millennials in the driver's seat. I'll just tell a side story. Do any of you guys know who this driver is? This is Brad Keselowski. Several years ago, there was a wreck during the Daytona 500, and the race got black flagged, and all the drivers were stuck on the backstretch. There's a big fire, couldn't race for several hours, and all of a sudden this tweet pops up, and Brad has pulled his phone out of his fire suit, and he starts live tweeting from the backstretch. Really not supposed to have your phone in the car. However, Brad increased his Twitter following by like double in a matter of like 20 minutes because he captured a moment, and he had the wherewithal, millennial, to recognize that in this moment there was an opportunity. He's gone on to probably being one of the best Twitter follows within the sport, always opinionated, definitely takes advantage of the medium. Couple stories really about giving millennials the wheel. My director of communications is 36 years old, not old at all. I say because I'm approaching it. He's not super social media savvy. He's great with more traditional forms of communication. He's an amazing asset. He relies on the 23-year-old account executive who sits selling tickets for us most of the time for content, because the 23-year-old who's in our office is the one whose head is always turning and has so many ideas and understands this because he's grown up with it. And so the two of them have become an amazing team working together because Edward knows what the brand values are, and Drew is wild, and so working together, they really actually put out some great stuff. As far as who can post on our Facebook is concerned, it's our account executive from the marketing team, not our director from the marketing team who has access. Not because I don't trust the director, but because I know that the account executive, the 25-year-old, is going to see in the middle of race day that perfect moment, capture it on her phone, and make sure that it gets posted. Whereas the director is focused on getting her job done, which I'm very happy about. And so she misses those things. And this is an opportunity for you, being that you're an older generation, to be the anchor and allow your younger assistant coaches to help pull you in this sort of direction. So teamwork, that's kind of what I'm talking about right now. There's a real opportunity for you to work with your millennial coaches to take your club, your brand, to another level. You need to be the one who has the 30,000-foot view of really what's important, being the backstop to make sure that nothing goes wrong, but you need to let your assistant coaches pull you forward. They're gonna have crazy ideas, and back to Drew, I think he's batting about maybe 200 right now, but that's totally fine. I want him to keep coming with every single idea that he possibly has and challenge all of us who are older, who are more conservative, and would keep doing things a certain way, because that's the only way that we're gonna continue to grow and advance and capture new audiences, or in your cases, bring new swimmers to your club, new sponsors to your club, all of that.